So this is a DrumWise Meets, and today I'm with Bob Knight. Bob has played with artists like CeeLo Green, Jason Derulo, Nik Kershaw and Nicole Scherzinger. Hi there, Bob.
Hey, how's it going, brother?
So what is your current equipment setup?
So I play Yamaha drums. I endorse Yamaha drums. I've played them since I was 11. And I'm 43 now. I know I don't look it. Well, actually, I've got my COVID beard going on, so I do look it a bit. But yeah, so I've always played the Yamaha drums. Predominantly, I was influenced by Steve Gadd. So I have a black 9000 from 1988, 10, 12, 14, 15 hanging, and then over the years, I've just added to that. And then I signed with Yamaha when I was playing with Charlotte Church, which is probably 2006. I want to say, might be earlier than that, but I can't. I'm not good with numbers or dates, should I say? But so I sort of signed with them properly then, and then so I had Maple Custom Absolute Nouveau. But I pretty much just played a recording custom. I've got the new one, I've got the old one. I'm not in my studio today, I'm at my house, but I'll send you some pictures. Maybe you can, I don't know if it's simple to add them to it, but I've got a lot of drums. Predominant, I'd say 90% Yamaha. I've got my old 9000, which I added to, so I've got all the power toms on all the sizes and all the shallow toms. I've got the new one, which is what I play pretty much all the time now, 10, 12, 13, 14, 16. There's an 18 as well, and that's always a 22 by 14. But I've got the 24 and the 20 as well. I've got an old 70s concert tom kit. I've got a couple of old 5000s. I've got a D20 and a C, whatever they are, from the late 60s. I've got 3 of those. And then electronics, I've got the DTX 900, the DTX Multi, and then a whole load of a lot of snare drums. But I really, collecting is a bit of a weird word, isn't it? But I've used all of my drums. Like, I don't have any that stay on the shelf. But I've got a lot of the Signature Series snare drums, which they don't make anymore, which is a bit of a shame because there's some beautiful drums. But, I've got the Steve Jordan and the Anton Fig and the Weckel 30th anniversary. I mean, they're brilliant, like, sounding drums. The Manu. So, yeah, Yamaha. Yeah, I play Yamaha. I've been a Yamaha guy for a long time. And I think that what influenced me, first of all, was the Gadd thing. But also, like, late 80s, basically anybody any good played Yamaha. Erskine, and you knew them by the color of the drums. Cherry wood, it's Weckel. Black, it's Gadd. The quartz gray, it's Erskine. JR played them. Steve Jordan played them. So anything I listened to, I was like, oh man, I love that record. Yeah, it's a Yamaha guy. Manu Katché, everybody. Russ Kunkel, everybody was playing them. So, and I know that not all of those guys play them anymore, but I think it's a political thing and a social thing as much as the gear. The gear's always been super consistent. And when I'm touring, especially when I'm with Nik Kershaw, we do a lot of fly and what they call a fly and drive. So we don't take our own gear. And pretty much Yamaha can supply me kits in certain places, but often it's just like it'll be the promoter's responsibility. So I send my spec, and pretty much any hire company in the world has got a 9000 in the right sizes. And it might be from the 80s, it might be one of the new ones, but whatever state it's in, whatever the shells are, just put fresh heads on. Always sounds sick. Always sounds wicked. Hardware, the Yamaha make the best hardware. Everybody knows that anyway. Like, you can see that with past endorsers who've moved on to different drum brands. They're still using Yamaha hardware. You can't. It's rock solid and super, movable and everything. So, I feel very lucky to be with them. But I played them, I bought them, and then made the switch. So there was nothing else in it. The same goes for Zildjian, who I've been with for 20 years. 20 years last year, so it'll be 21 years this year in June. I've been a Zildjian endorser. Again, I had a lot of their cymbals and stuff. I had played a few other brands and stuff, but all my heroes played them, and they just have the sounds that I wanted. So they've been very supportive over the last 21 years. So I play them. I'm with Vic Firth, which obviously part of the Zildjian family as well now, but been with Vic for a while. They're great, really, you know, super consistent, no bananas and all that jazz. Like I was with a different company before, but I was having consistency issues and stuff, and I find that it's quite frustrating if you pull a pair out in the middle of a gig and one weighs more than the other. It's a bit annoying. So I'm with Vic, and then I'm with Protection Racket, being with my mate Dean at Protection Racket. I was one of the first endorsers with them many years ago, mostly because they're brilliant cases, but also I do a lot of gigs where I lump my own gear. Like I think that people think that I've got a drum tech all the time and all that, but only really have a drum tech on tour. Maybe we'll have one backline guy who's looking after drums, bass, keys, or whatever, and I drive myself around the country a lot. Still, you know, so Pro Racket, just everything's perfect, and they fit in the car, and they feel good, and they don't mess up your seats, they don't mess up your drums. They're a great company. You know, I don't know if you know Dean down there, but yeah, he's a ledge. He's an absolute ledge. Yeah, and that's kind of it, really. I mean, I play Tycoon percussion. I don't really play much percussion, but they've always looked after me. And I use the Porter and Davis, thumper system. It's probably not called a thumper system. It's probably got a cleverer name, but you know, butt kicker, the old bum warmer. Yeah. And those are going to they're the companies that I dig and that support me. So pretty grateful. But yeah, my setup changes a lot. I don't use the same setup for every gig, but I have been playing 3 toms across the top for a couple of years now, just because I've got them. So I thought, might as well set them up. It doesn't make me play any more notes. It just gives me more tonal options. So my fills don't all sound the same because they're all the same pretty much. And also, you can't really see because I'm sitting down, but I'm quite big. I'm 6 foot, whatever, 2, 1, something, and I'm like 17 stone. And so if I play little drums and a little thing, I just look like a giant on a SpongeBob. So kind of like I've created a nice space to be within, and sometimes 2 floors, 3 racks, 2 floors, but yeah, I'm not letting it encourage me to overplay. I'm just kind of feel at home behind it. So that's kind of where I'm at gear-wise at the moment.
That's cool. And you saying about the Yamaha stuff, my third kit, my first proper kit was a Yamaha Club Custom.
Oh, wicked.
Was it a Club Custom? Yeah, Club Custom, which was mahogany, I believe.
Yeah.
I kind of regret selling that because you just don't see them anymore.
No. I mean, they relaunched that badge, didn't they? Or not that badge, but you know, they did a Club Custom line, the one with Steve Jordan,
okay.
Which is, but it's not the same drums. And the ones you're talking about are like sort of 80s vibes, right? Yeah. Same time as the Rock Tour Custom and stuff that Matt Sorum used to play and all that. But the newer Club Custom is now discontinued, but I have a set of those as well. They are really, really monster drums.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. I just love them. I love all their gear, really. Silly, isn't it?
I used to have the not the Anton Fig. There was another wood hoop silver sparkle.
Billy Cobham.
It must have been Billy Cobham one.
I think the Cobham is silver, yeah.
That was great. But again, I sold it. And I'm like, oh, I wish I hadn't.
You know what? I'll send you some pictures, but like, it looks like I'm hoarding because I've got so many drums. But there was a time when I was very, very poor. And I sold my drums. I had my 9000, and I was studying jazz, and I had a little Gretsch 18-inch bass drum kit, 18, 12, 16, and I loved it. And it took me ages to get it together. And when I was living in London, for the second year I lived here, so 96, I had to sell it to pay the rent. I was that poor. And so I sold it for exactly what the rent was, £266.67. I remember getting the check, taking the check to the bank, and then, you know, paying the rent for that month, thinking, well, that's another month I could stay here. But I made a deal with myself that I'd never, ever sell anything that again, you know, because it was kind of a sign to me that, you know, that things weren't going that great. So, so I maybe took it a bit too literally. And so I think I've sold like 1 kit since 96, you know, so I need to do a bit of a cull really, because my new studio, I've been in this new studio just over a year, but it's kind of it's wall to wall gear, but yeah, that's what that I know what you mean about selling gear and regretting it. It's like heavy.
Yeah. What age did you start drumming, and what bands inspired you initially?
I would have been 6 years old when I had my first lesson. And at that age, I think, I'd seen Animal on the Muppets like a lot of kids of that generation. There was only 3 TV channels or 4 channels or whatever. And I think I had a lot of energy as a kid. I'm not very, well, I'm not even a tiny bit sporty. I mean, I'd like to be, but so I didn't really have an outlet for other than like running around and shouting. So I think my parents were kind of like, oh, he likes the drums, let's go. My brother is 3 years older than me. He's a musician. He's a great saxophone player and record producer and stuff, but he would have been playing clarinet and saxophone and things like that, piano by then, but just wasn't really interested in anything else. I mean, I did study piano for a while, but I didn't stick with it. And if any of your students are watching that play, studying drums, but doing a melodic instrument alongside, I'd really encourage them to stick with it, because if you go to the next stage and music becomes your career, it's so much easier to be able to talk to other musicians in the vocabulary and in words that they understand about the music that you're playing, rather than going, I don't really know. Like let's go from the B flat. Like, yeah, I don't know which one that is. It's like then you're the drummer, So I regret that. But yeah, I was 6 years old, and I studied with a great teacher called Cherry Whitehouse in Harrogate in Yorkshire, where I'm from, who's now called Cherry Bratkowski. I studied with her for a really long time, probably till I was 13, 14. I maybe had a little break around 11. I think I sort of fell out of love with it for a bit. I had an old Maxwin Pearl kit. That was my first kit. And then I got to a certain point with her, and she said, I think you should go and see somebody else, because she's been with me for a long time. So I went to see a guy called Paul Smith in Leeds, who's a wicked drummer and a great teacher, had a lot of great students. And then I did a couple of years with him, and then he said, I think you should go see Jeff Myers, who was the drummer in the Sid Lawrence Orchestra, and he was also in Leeds. So I did a lot of big band, the Buddy Rich book and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I had really fast hands for when I was about 17, 18. Not anymore, but yeah, that was kind of the kind of like teacher lineage. And I did summer schools, the Wavendon jazz courses. I don't think they do them anymore, but they were amazing, like residential courses for all ages. So I think I did it twice, and for maybe 3 times. I was always the youngest person there, and the oldest person would be maybe someone in their 60s. And it was all instruments. So it was a really immersive, really good vibe, and loads of visiting teachers. John Marshall taught drums on that, and Trevor Tompkins taught drums on that. And then when I moved to London to go to the Royal Academy, I went to the Royal Academy of Music Jazz degree, 1995, which was a big deal. I don't know if that course is an amazing course. At the time, they take one drummer from all applications from the whole world. So there's only 8 people in your year group, and it's a 4-year degree. And so I had Trevor Tompkins and then John Marshall as my tutors there, which was amazing. And they had a lot of visiting things. I had lessons with Bernard Purdy, because he came into school to do masterclass, but literally just one-on-one, on 3 different occasions, or 3 different occasions with him. Loads of other visiting, like heavy cats. So it was a brilliant time. I really enjoyed it, and I'm a big advocate for study and for education and for having a good teacher. And I know there's a lot of great stuff online these days and stuff, but I think speaking direct to a great drum teacher, a great, like what you've got set up at DrumWise, so that as a student you can be monitored and pushed and shown down a path and shown new exciting things. Such a brilliant thing. I'm not saying you can't get good without lessons, but I just think it streamlines you and it keeps you motivated and excited. So I'm very grateful to have had a really good sort of solid drum education.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you say you went to the academy?
Yeah.
My granddad went to the Royal Academy of Music for piano.
Oh wow,
That must have been in like 1942. So
wow,
we went there. So yeah, I've got all these certificates and stuff. It's cool. Yeah,
brilliant.
a cool.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a beautiful building. It hasn't changed much. I mean, obviously, it's beautifully maintained. They bought the building next door. We did a lot of fundraising, and they bought it just after we left, which is a shame for us. But because because they only have a certain amount of practice spaces, so now they're kind of twice the size that they were. But yeah, I mean, I would have played in the same halls that your granddad played in, like, which because they've got 2 concert halls and a theatre and
Concert hall, yeah.
mental.
Yeah, it's cool because I did the Royal Festival Percussion there last
Oh
year.
yeah.
No, well, it's just called the Festival Percussion. Yeah, demonstrating air drums. So it was just
Oh, wicked.
inside the building, and I was just like, this is like just the history in that place. Oh yeah, and the other part to that question, what like bands or artists inspired you initially?
Well, I think my parents aren't musical, and I don't think they'll mind me saying that. But they were music fans, so there was a lot of music on in the house. My dad had a big vinyl collection of kind of Rolling Stones and Stranglers. Trying to think. I mean, he really liked Bachman Turner Overdrive. He really liked Meatloaf. He really liked some weird, difficult stuff, but he liked a band called the Horslips, an Irish band, like sort of Irish rock. Thin Lizzy, he was a big, collector of. So kind of listened to a lot of that kind of stuff. But once I sort of found my own kind of thing, like, I mean, Phil Collins, I was a massive Phil Collins. I still am a massive Phil Collins fan. But there's the record Serious Hits Live, which, I mean, I was probably 13 or 14. I thought that was mega. Like, it's just, with him and Chester Thompson and all that kind of stuff. So I really dug all that. I mean, I was really into like shit metal, to be honest, when I was about 11 and 12. Like, I really liked Megadeth and Metallica. Well, Metallica's not shit, is it? But you know what I mean? Like, I had a crappy mullet and a denim jacket with patches on it and stuff. So I played along to a lot of those kind of records. I probably was like early teens when I really sort of like, people started saying like, oh, this is Steve Gadd and this is, this is Jeff Porcaro, and those kind of like, oh, you should check this record out. I started gigging when I was about 15, and so I had to start learning tunes. And then I was like, this is someone say this is Steely Dan. This is people giving you cassettes, like learn these, because all the guys I was playing with were much older than me. So when I was 15, the guys I was in bands with guys that were like 32, 33, that kind of age. So they would talk about Tom Waits and Steely Dan and that kind of stuff, like I knew what they were talking about. And like, you never want to be the one who goes, I don't know what. So I'd be like, yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that. And then have to go away and be like, but didn't have the internet. There weren't records that my parents had. So I was like, how do I find out about these records? And then that's when you used to go to people's houses with a blank cassette. And, can you just record that tune? And that, so it was those kind of things. And if I'm honest, I never wanted to be in a band. I've never been in a band. I was in one band when I was at school. Like, I think, well, they would have been in the sixth form. So I was probably 12, 13, and they would have been 16, 17. That's the only band I've ever been in. I've never been in originals, but mostly because I never found a singer that I didn't want to kill. No, that's mean, isn't it? But I don't know. I loved the idea of being a session musician. I loved that I could find Steve Gadd playing with Paul Simon, I could find him playing with Eric Clapton, I could find him playing with James Taylor, and it's like, what? And then you'd look on the liner notes of a pop record and Steve Gadd. Well, he does everything. Like, how's he do all this? That to me was more exciting than being in U2 or whatever, I just never, I don't know. I think maybe I've got an attention thing. I just couldn't like the thought of playing the same 11 songs for your whole career was like, no, I can't, not up for it.
No, I totally get that.
Obviously, I was wrong. Like, if I'd have been in Coldplay, I'd be a billionaire, wouldn't I? Still, never mind.
You've kind of already said this. I think I know who you're going to say. But if you had to pick just one, could you tell us who your all-time favourite drummer is?
it's so difficult, isn't it? To pin, you know, I like a lot of guys. I mean, it's difficult not to sound like a cliche machine, isn't it, when someone says that? Because obviously, I love John Bonham, and he had a massive influence on me, not just in the facial hair department, but I love the swing, and because I'd studied jazz for a long time. But if I was honest, my heart was never sold on bebop. You know what I mean? I was studying bebop during the day, and then I was going home and listening to Tower of Power and listening to you know, AC/DC or what. Do you know what I mean? And I think the other people I was studying with weren't doing that. You know, they were completely obsessed and immersed in a world of Coltrane and Bill Evans and stuff. But so I did. There's a lot of jazz drummers that I really like Jack DeJohnette and Tony Williams and people like that. And I did study, you know, some Elvin things, but I mean, it's kind of a lot of it was too heavy for me, man. But I love I love all the time players, you know, like Keltner and Ferroni and Russ Kunkel, and you know, and I'm split between between Gad and Jeff Porcaro. And I think I'd say Gad on maybe Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I'd probably say Jeff on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and at the weekend, because Jeff definitely looked like he had a good weekend. But yeah, I mean, if I'm not allowed to, but if I am, I'll say Jeff Gad, or yeah, there you go. I can't say Steve Porcaro because he's the bass player, isn't he? But yeah, probably them. Like probably Gad the most, I suppose. I didn't buy a Pearl. Let's face it, I bought a Yamaha. So yeah, I'll go with Gad.
Someone did say to me the other day that Porcaro used to play a 9,000 in the studio.
Yeah, there's pictures and stuff, isn't there? Like and Zildjian hi-hats and all kinds of like, woo.
Yeah. So another hard one, I think here. What's the highlight of your career so far?
Talking to you? No.
Well, thanks.
Obviously. It's the highlight of my day. I'll tell you that for nothing, brother. I don't know, really. Like, it depends on what you measure it on, doesn't it? Really, like, I think nowadays everything's measured on fucking likes and digital thumbs up. I think the highlight of my career, like, I'm just really, really happy and proud to play the drums for a living. You know, I could pinpoint like a certain gig that, like, yeah, it, you know, like I played with James Taylor on Jules Holland, and that was amazing. And I don't even really think I played that well. I was really nervous and kind of a bit overwrought because that's Gad's gig, and James Taylor's one of my favorite singers, and there's no rehearsal. Just turn up and like meet him and run through it in the dressing room. You know, sitting on a fridge, tapping it out when like, okay, let's go play it. Like, I mean, that's a highlight, you know, as a one occasion thing. But just the highlight, I just love playing music with people. I love playing the drums. And I think that, you know, without sounding like a soppy, that's, you know, the highlight for me really is just making music. And I, you know, whether it's clubs, it's, you know, because it's nice to play at Wembley Arena or wherever. But actually, some of the best gigs I've done are like at the, you know, at the Borderline or in my local boozer. And do you know what I mean? I think really the highlight for me is playing music and the feeling of being locked in a monster pocket with a great band or a great, you know, a killing groove, and just having the moment of the presence of mind to come out of it and just go, man, this sounds killing. This is really happening. Brilliant. You know, I think that's like that emotional back of your neck, like, whoa, this feels so good. Like that's the highlight for me, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So you've done quite a few pop gigs.
Yeah.
As, you know, Jason Derulo and CeeLo Green and James Arthur and Rumour. So can you talk to us about how you got into those gigs?
Yeah, of course. I'm always happy to talk about it because that's the bit that always seems a bit mysterious, isn't it? And really, all of the gigs that I've done have come through two things, or have come by way of two things: relationships, as in people you know, people I know. Like the first name gig I ever did really was with Alison. You know, that was mine. Was with Alison Moyer, who was a big singer in the '80s and continues her career ever since. And I joined a band with her in about 2004, and I got the gig because my mate Steve Corley, who's a piano player, who's 2 years above me when I was at the academy. So when I graduated, he'd been out in the big bad world for 2 years. He randomly got recommended to her manager as a piano player, did a radio show with her. They got on really well, which is where the personality thing comes in. And she said, "You're a great guy. Want to put a new band together for me?" And he said, "Yeah, okay." And then he called me and went, "Do you want to do this gig?" So I mean, it sounds simple, but obviously you need a friend that plays the piano to get a gig in the first place. But there was no audition, and there was no, like, somebody saw me playing at Carnegie Hall, and you know, it was just, it was pretty organic, you know. And then she had a manager called Nik, who's like a really nice guy. But the first manager I ever worked for, the nicest manager I've ever worked for, which is a bit of just like, no, some of them are lovely, but he was the best, absolute diamond. To the point that the first tour we ever did was a 5-week tour, which was a sellout. And at the end, he said, "Bill us for 6 weeks." And I was like, the music business is amazing. This is amazing. Tour bonus. I've never, ever had one since. It's the only one I've ever had. So maybe they're a thing of the past. But so I backtrack. So he was also a press officer. He ran like a company. So he managed Alison and he did press for people. And one of the people he did press for was Charlotte Church. And she had just stopped being an opera singer and started being a pop singer. And I said to him, can you help me get that gig? Like, she must need a band. And he was like, yeah. Alison had finished touring. She wasn't going to do anything for a while. So he shared an office with her manager. He recommended me to the manager. I went in and had a meeting. He said it was cool. Went over to meet her in Wales. Talked about music and the sort of sound she wanted from a band. They said, yeah, go for it. And then I put that band together. So I built that band. We did 3 gigs. And then she said, "I don't like touring. It's tiring." And we stopped. And then she got offered a TV show.
Are you from Wales? I didn't realise.
Charlotte Church is. Oh, am I from Wales? I'm just brilliant at accents.
That's just that was just uncanny. Just
you bastard. Yeah, sorry, I shouldn't do it. But yeah, so she got a TV show, and she wanted to keep the band because they had suggested in production they'd have a house band. So she wanted to keep us as the band, and I'd loved TV, you know, as a kid to watch Parkinson and all that kind of stuff. You know, with that great Laurie Holloway band, and then I used to stay up late to try and watch the Letterman thing. They used to show David Letterman on Channel 4 at about 2 o'clock in the morning. So I'd go to bed and then set an alarm and get up and watch Anton Fig because he had such a killing band. So I was like, maybe we can do that, you know. So I had three horns, 2 BVs, rhythm section. We did 3 seasons on that show. And on every episode, she did a duet with someone else and we backed them, which meant that every episode I met a new artist, a new manager, a new record label person. And I think I keep my eyes very open when I'm at work. And some people just go, "Yeah, I did this gig the other night. Oh, who are all these fucking dickheads are standing around in the background?" And I've always been I'm quite a nosy person anyway. So I would always be observing, like, who's that? Why are they talking to that person? That person seems to have something to say that impacts our performance. They've got an idea. So I worked out who everybody was, and I'm a big believer in what I call, sounds really, really stupid, isn't it? But what I call maintaining relationships. Because it's no good saying, like, "Oh, I met that guy once." It's like, well, if you met him once, why didn't you see him again? Why didn't you keep that line of communication open? So even if once every 6 months I dropped someone an email and just went, "Oh, just checking in to see how you're doing. Like, it was great when we worked with your artist so-and-so on the so-and-so show. I'm available at the moment if you need a musical director." Or I just kept all the lines of communication open without being a pushy dickhead, because nobody it's such a fine line between pushing too hard, but then not getting in. I'm just going, oh, well, they'll probably call me. They probably won't. You need to get in front of people, you know. So one gig led to the next gig, you know. It really was as simple as, not simple, it was really difficult. And I engineered certain things, you know, but that was how I got those first few gigs. And I used them to build a reputation. Once you've got a reputation, it's a much smaller world than you think. And you've done a thing for a record label and it went well. Charlotte was on Sony, so then that meant I knew everyone at Sony. Then we did some stuff for some people at Warner's, so then I knew people at Warner's, and that was how I got CeeLo. I got through Warner's when I was already doing Rumour. And I got Rumour because I book a few things as well. I don't just play. I'd booked some strings to play with Josh Groban, and I went to see, he was doing a Terry Wogan Radio 2 show, which it doesn't record that far from where I live because I'm quite lazy. So I was like, oh, well, I'll just go because my mate is his MD, but we had become friends through the music. So I went to see him, and while I was sat watching her do a sound check, I just said to the girl sitting next to me, she's got a great voice. And the girl turned around and said, I'm the tour manager and she needs a new band. Do you want to do it? But okay. You know, and then I was with her for 2 years. During that 2 years was when she was on Warner's. I met all the Warner people, and they said, CeeLo's coming to do Glastonbury. His band can't come because they don't have visas. Can you put it together? It's just a one-off. So yeah, I can do that. So I had a different band than the Rumour band. We're at the same rehearsal place in different rooms. It was a little bit like Squeaky Bum. And then we ended up being the only band in the world that knew his set because it was a new set and he didn't have an American band. So I ended up doing his gig for about 2 years, rotating it with Rumour. So that's a brief synopsis, but things come from other things. And, you know, I did a lot of function gigs. I still play them now if someone calls me for them, although people don't call me for them much. I did a lot of pub gigs, and I made sure that, you know, if I went to a pub to see a band, I'd let the drummer know, oh, great playing, man. You know, like, I'm a local drummer if you ever need a dep. So I did a lot of deps, especially around Hertfordshire, because I was in London then, so around Hertfordshire and around London. The more times you play with new people, the more opportunity it is for someone to say, you know, that guy's good. Get his number. Do you know what I mean? And then you know, you've got 5 people. You do a covers gig with 4 people you don't know, and now you know 9, and they tell 10 other people. Now you know 19 people that know your name. It spreads pretty quick.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how things kind of evolved.
Speaking about playing with lots of different artists, when you first get a gig with a new artist, how do you learn the material? So, for example, do you listen to it and transcribe it, or do you just listen to it, or are you sent all of the sheet music? Here you go. Here's the entire show. Play.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the time. Like if it's a new gig, as in we're going to do rehearsals, you can put the band together, or you're the new drummer, then I'll get the record and I'll put the record on, and I'll just have it. I'll have it in the car. I'll have it in the kitchen. I'll have it in the main stereo. I'll have it on my phone, and I just get into it. Then I'll make charts, but pretty non-specific. Like I won't transcribe it, and unless there's a what we call a signature fill. CeeLo's song "Forget You." There's a fill that comes out of a break, and it's the same every time. And everybody who plays that song and the function plays it, you've got to play that fill. So I'll write that one out. But if a drummer in the studio has just played something tasty that's on the record, I'm not going to do it, because I'm always going to do me. And I have that with Nik Kershaw. Like sometimes people send me emails saying like, how do you approach this Vinnie Colaiuta fill in this track? And I want to write back and go, yeah, I nail it. But I usually just say, I just go frak dum babadum boff, because I'm not Vinny, and if he wanted Vinny, he'd have Vinny. You know what I mean? So I think I'm confident enough to play like me without trying to sound like the guy on the record. But I'm also respectful enough to the music to know that fill's got to be in, that feels inconsequential, you know. But obviously I'll clock the groove. And then I'll play along to the record with my skeleton chart, and I'll maybe play it 6 or 7 times, and then I'll turn the chart over and see if I can get, from the top to the bottom. The idea being that when we get to first day of rehearsals, I know all the music and I don't need my charts. But that's a perfect case. That's a perfect scenario. And a lot of the things I do, pickup gigs and last minute deps, like James Arthur I just depped for my friend Dan Bingham, great drummer, on that. The first time I did it, I went to America I think we did 1 rehearsal, and the bass player was late, and so we ended up playing everything once, kind of thing. So I had charts for that, and it's like, unless somebody's going to pay you a week's money to internalize everything, if you're just going off to do 1 gig, it can actually work out like not great money. If you have to spend 7 days on something and then 3 days travel and a day, when you're only doing 1 gig, it's like, I'm not breaking even on this. So I'll use my discretion, really. Nowadays, I've got an iPad stand. So maybe if I need cheat sheets or something, I can just set them pretty low. And I know I've got like tempo markings, things like that. But yeah, if I've got the time, that's how I'm going to take it down. Live with it, chart it, then get off the book.
Look at that, in 3 easy steps.
3 easy steps, and now you know the gig.
It's that easy, guys. Just
Write it out, learn it.
Yeah, done. Boom. Have you ever had anything go wrong on stage that you've had to recover from? Anything like pretty bad?
Yeah, loads. Bad things happen to good people. Why? Yeah, I've had loads. I mean, like bass drum beater up the trouser leg. That's a classic, like nightmare. Oh my God, and that's bad. I always play a double pedal, but I don't really play any. I don't play double pedal stuff. But I once snapped a bass drum beater in half, which was pretty impressive. Yeah. But it was a single pedal, and I hadn't realized that I'd done it. So then I stabbed it through the head, and that you've got to stop a gig to change the bass drum head. So after that, I always play a double pedal so that if something happens to the right, I can use the slave, and I have enough. I mean, independence is pushing it, Bob, but I can play 1 and 3 with my left leg, So after that, I always play a double pedal. Always have a double pedal on my spec, just in case something goes wrong with the right. Got it. It's rare, but that was a real like trousersy horrible moment, and we didn't have a spare head, so we just gaffed it, and you know what I mean. It was just really eggy. So that's bad. The bass drum and your trouser leg's bad. I mean, I've knocked a lot of stuff over. I'm quite physical. I mean, it's a physical instrument, isn't it? And I find it quite weird sometimes when you go and see people play, or younger people who are very kind of upright and they don't move. I say, why aren't you moving? Like, it's music. You're trying to make people dance or make people feel a groove, or even, trying to make this, if you can make the stiffest guy in the room just tap his fingers or tap his toes, like, so when I see a drummer who's really not a part of it, I find it it's a bit weird, but because I get into it, I've knocked cymbals over, and sometimes because my kit's quite big, and if the rise is not that big and it's a festival, you throw it all on and then haven't tightened something up. So I've lost a couple of cymbals here and there, but I mean, that's not a big deal. I have jumped up I've like gone for something and caught my in-ears with a stick and pulled it out the pack at the back, and we're playing to a click. That's pretty catastrophic. But you can recover, like it was, you can recover. The worst thing that happened recently, this is actually, maybe it's funny, I don't know. I absolutely shat it. I was depping for my friend Simon Merry, who's a wicked drummer, and he does Rick Astley, but he used to do Bananarama, and I depped for him on a Banana. He was like, "Can you do Bananarama?" Yeah, fine. In Gothenburg in Sweden, no rehearsal, and the MD had sent the tracks, had a drop. It's in Dropbox, so, and it's like a recording with the click and the tracks, and then with the band. Can't change the mix or anything like that, so fine. So I've charted everything out. I'm going to use the charts because it's a one-time deal, and I'm probably never going to do the gig again. So get there. It's 8,000 people, so it's a big gig, and it's in a theme park, which is like, I think it's called Tivoli Gardens. It's amazing. So, and they said to us before, this is just by an aside, said before, do you want to go on all the rides? It's like, yeah, but after. So after the gig, we get to do the whole Michael Jackson, like just walk past the queue, get on the front, which is really eggy, but amazing. Anyway, we do the gig, got a set list. I've got all the tracks in order. They set up, the three girls are in the middle, no one behind them. Keyboards stage left, drums are stage right. So the bass is with the drums, the guitars with the keyboards. Keyboard player runs all the tracks. They don't do much chat between, so it's kind of like, ba boo ba ba doo bow off, bing bong bong doo. Fine. I'm looking down the list. We're playing a song. Whenever I'm doing a gig like that, the song that I'm playing, I'm always looking to see what's coming next. Once we'll say if it's say it's a 16-bar verse, and it's just boom, ga goom goom, ga goom, ga goom. During those 16 bars, I'm looking at my set list, going, right, what's coming next? Reminding myself, oh yeah, I know what's that. iPad's there, so I can swipe to the next song. I'm looking at the name of the next song, and I'm thinking, doesn't ring any bells. That one doesn't ring any bells. That's weird. So I swipe the iPad to see the chart, to see if that reminds me. It's not that chart. It's the chart that's next is not the song that's on the set list. So go back to, still playing the really started something. Swipe, fuck. Oh no, that's not, swipe the other way, bollocks. Oh, swipe. It's not there. So then trying to get my phone's on the thing, trying to get my phone to look in the Dropbox. So I think I've messed up. I haven't downloaded something. And basically, there's a song in the set list that nobody sent me, that I don't have a chart for, and that I've never heard. And I don't have talkback. And we finished that song, and I see the key. I'm looking at the keyboard player going, and I just see him go, ding, ding. And my mate, the bass player, I just shouted, I don't know. I'm shouting in the previous song, I don't know the next song. I don't know the next song. And he goes, I can't. I'm saying, how does it go? He goes, I can't think how it goes while I'm playing this one. I was like, dude, come on. So we finished that one. Bam, I see the finger go down, and my mate just turns to me and goes, it's Motown. It's Motown. And they go, ding, ding, boovly, gone, bat, gat, goom, gat, goom, gat. I just played time all the way through to the end. And then I'm watching the bass player, and he goes, this is the last one. Da-da, ba-da, bow. And we caught it. And it's like, yes, it was amazing. But it was, I mean, I've got some grey in this beard of mine, but it was really,
afterwards, your drum still was a mess afterwards.
Terrible. Yeah, it was a real brown trousers. So that was something that went wrong quite recently. But I suppose the background that I've got in jazz music and being able to react to things, the relationship that I have with that bass player, who I went to college with, by the way, so I've known him for 20 years, and the confidence that I have in my own skills, in that I think that anybody can play any song. I mean, definitely you want to hear it first, but you don't have to. I think a lot of students just get bogged down in trying to play songs or play along to records and play everything that's on the record.
Absolutely.
And I think that if you can go, gat, 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 and it feels good and it sounds good and you look like you mean it, you probably get away with it. Like, do you know this one? Nah, but it'll be all right. And it probably will be all right. And in that case, it was all right. Like, I know what a Motown groove is. Just sit on it.
Yeah.
And so, do you know what I mean? Yeah, if it had been like a massive prog gig or something, I'd have been in terrible trouble. But, I don't do massive prog gigs, so it's unlikely.
I'm glad you said that, because that's something that I'm always telling people. They get bogged down in, I've got to play this exact fill that you've transcribed. And I'm like, no, you don't. If you're going to audition for the band, yeah, maybe you should. But right now, you're just learning it to get better. So just do the bits that are relevant and, that work for you.
I so very rarely get that far into a song.
Yeah.
To learn someone else's like licks and stuff. Like, it's not my personality. And 9 times out of 10, on the occasions I've bothered to do it, the time it takes versus the payoff, it's completely inconsequential. It's like, well, why didn't I spent like 16 hours getting that down. No one even noticed. And when I play it, I don't feel like me. I feel like I'm trying to be somebody else, and that's a horrible feeling, you know, in any part of life, isn't it? But musically, like, I feel like today I'm going to try and be Dave Weckl. Doesn't sound like Dave Weckl, Bob. Sounds like budget Weckl, and like nobody needs that in their life.
Well, and when there's a fill in a song and you hear it and you work it out and you're like, that's really weird. I wouldn't have played it like that. So, but it's because you're playing someone else's interpretation. So sometimes if the gig allows for it, yeah, you change the fill and make it your own. As you say, you know, on Forget You.
Forget You. Yeah, you got to do that one.
But, you know, so there's certain fills that have got to be right. But yeah,
you don't want to be doing In the Air Tonight on a pub gig and not playing the fill, do you?
Well, exactly.
Guys, I'm going to do my own spin on this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to
happen. So I've asked this one to a lot of drummers now, and it's becoming apparent to me that most professional drummers are quite lucky because their hobby becomes their job. But
yeah.
What are your hobbies away from drumming?
I you know what? I honestly don't have any. Like, I thought sometimes I get a bit down about it. Like, I wish I cared about something else. I mean, I do care about stuff. I love watching Leeds United play football. But I mean, is that a hobby? I mean, maybe it's just an excuse to go to the pub. I'm not sure. But I mean, I like watching Leeds play. I like socializing, but I don't think that's a hobby. I like eating, but I don't know if that's a hobby. I mean, I really, really like people. I really like being around people. I like entertaining people. I like being entertained. I don't really like big groups. I like going out with people one-on-one and talking, you know, and listening and laughing, you know. I love hanging out. But I mean, I play a bit of poker for fun, but really it's for the hang more than for the cards. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I like car. I don't like anything I don't like anything as much as I like drums. And so I've never got in. Like, I like cars and I like fast cars, but I know where the petrol goes and I know where you sit. I don't know anything else. Like, so I can't get motivated enough to be like, yeah, I'm going to buy an old car. I'm going to do it up. Do you know Paul Stewart? Great drummer. But Paul is also an incredible mechanic and has like an unbelievable street racing Camaro that he takes care of himself. He's got a beautiful Bel Air, you know, like a 50s massive. It's like, and he's like, oh man, you know, I saw him at some festivals last summer because he was doing Paul Young, and I'm always talking to him about cars. He's like, all you talk about is cars. Like, you should totally get one. It's like, I'm just so scared of things that I don't understand that it couldn't be a hobby. Do you know what I mean? I'd want to be in it as much as I'm in drums. And I've got 2 kids and a wife, and my wife is a fantastic musician as well, by the way, that we met at the Royal Academy. She plays the harp.
Wow. Okay.
So I don't know. I haven't got like a main, this is my other thing that I'm into. I think music's so massive, isn't it?
That's it, and that's why I say we're really lucky, really, because for all of us, drums start out as our hobby. You know, when we're a kid and we start playing, you'd never have thought that would then pay the mortgage. You know.
Yeah. Right.
So it's kind of a loaded question because a lot of people basically say drums.
Yeah.
The most important question of this interview now. We've had some really amazing answers on this one. So, what's your favourite biscuit?
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh God, that's tough. It's tough. I like a Danish shortbread tin, but I mean, that's a whole tin. But you know the ones I mean? Yeah. I can smash a whole tin of those though. And then the tin is good for keeping like washers and drum keys and bits and bobs in. But it's not my favorite. What's my favorite? I mean, currently I'm on a chocolate hobnob tip.
Yes,
that's where we're at in our house.
Yeah.
We're on a chocolate hobnob tip, usually about 11 o'clock with a double espresso. And I'm giving you some pearls here. So I'll take the chocolate hobnob, turn it chocolate side down, and put it over the top of the espresso. And then the espresso's freshly poured, ground from bean to cup, just works its magic and loosens up the choco. Flip it back over, pow. That's how I'm rolling on the Biscuit world.
Now that's amazing. My next question was going to be, are you a dunker? But you're
No. I'm kind of using it as a steaming opportunity.
yeah, you're a steamer.
I'm a steamer. I don't drink tea, you see. I only drink coffee. I only drink coffee short.
Right.
So there's not a lot, you know, if I dunk, I'm losing a lot of real estate. So it's not going to happen. Dunking's off the agenda.
I did one of these with none of your kids can't hear, can they?
No.
I did one of these with Ollie Wiseman the other day, and he said about he said hobnobbing, just joking, and then I looked it up afterwards because I was like, I'm sure that's rude, and it is rude, and it had. I looked it up after I'd put the interview out, and I was like, oh no, that's not good. But I did have to look it up, so I was thinking,
yeah, it's not teabagging, it's hobnobbing. Could be worse.
Yeah, but you know, if you're softening the middle bit of your biscuit, you could easily punch that middle bit out for the hobnobbing action.
Oh no! Wow, that's a thing. Wow,
Yeah, so
people have too much time on their hands, don't they? Get the Will Coxon book out. Stop having sex with biscuits. Crikey.
it's not with the biscuit. It's through the biscuit.
Through the biscuit. Ooh.
I know. What's that about? Anyway.
The internet.
We digress. No, I haven't looked it up.
Yeah. Oh God.
So my last serious one.
Yeah.
Whew, just back to normal. So if you could give one bit of advice to up and coming drummers, what would that be?
I did an interview once, and I ended with this, and they used it as a quote, which was bad, but and I'll expand on it. But it was, don't be a dick and be better than everyone else. And it didn't look so good written down. It was right at the end of a long spiel. But my point is, like, if you can become the greatest drummer that you can possibly be, the best player, like, and I mean the important things: time, feel, musicality, open ears, all of that stuff. If you can be the best version of that you can be, and then you can be a person that gets on with everybody else, that's likable, that doesn't want to get into arguments about politics or football or the stupid things that people seem to get in, you know, carried away with. If you can be the sort of person that people want to hang out with, and you can deliver musically, then that's what you should aim for. That's what you should be going for, I think, because those are the kind of people that I always want to hang out with. Like, God, that bass player is amazing and hilarious, brilliant. Well, book him. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to that guitar player is so introverted and uncomfortable to be around, but he can really play. Go, nah, I don't want it. Or, man, that guy's brilliant. He makes me feel, I love hanging out with him. He's terrible. You can't book him. Do you know what I mean? So you need the two things. But so I guess my advice is to work as hard as you possibly can, especially when you're young and you have the time, because it's amazing how time disappears when you get older. Not even just when you have a family, but you know, when you're studying and you've got a room you can practice 7 hours a day in. Practice 7 hours a day, practice 8 hours a day, like constructive, like be honest with yourself. Am I getting better? Am I not getting better? What am I good at? What am I not good at? Focus on the things you're good at for part of the day, because it's good to feel good, and then focus on the things you're not so good at. You know, just being honest and true. And a one word of caution for drummers or anybody really is, and this is a new thing because the internet is a new thing, but is to don't get bogged down in Instagram and Facebook videos. Don't get caught up thinking that you're not good enough. Don't remember that might be take 72 of that 30-second fill or 30-second beat. That might be 3 days worth of fucking expensive cameras and remixing and doing all that. Nobody's just going, I'm just gonna put up the camera and play. Right, there you go. Oh, it's amazing. Like, it's such a contrived medium, and it's so, people are only showing you what they want to show you, and usually they want to sell you something. So just be aware of what you're looking at, why you're looking at it. Like, why did somebody post that? What's their thinking? What's their purpose? How does it help me? There's loads of stuff you can use that's helpful and free, brilliant, but don't let it. People talk to me, musicians talk to me who are depressed and they're in their mid-20s because they don't feel like they're doing well enough. Then they haven't succeeded. And I'm 24, Bob. I haven't even played at the O2. It's like, well, I'm 43 and I haven't played at the fucking O2. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's fine. Calm down. Like, your career goes like this. There's a progression, and it goes all the way through your whole life, hopefully, you know. And if you come out of college and get the greatest gig in the world, you can only fall off, and you can only spend the rest of your career trying to get back to where you once were. So patience, you know, like if you studied medicine, you came out, you don't go, and you graduated. Here's a scalpel, start chopping up some brains. Like, you've got to wipe some old people's bums and put some casts on children that have fallen out of trees' arms. Do you know what I mean? You've got to learn it. And music is exactly the same. And the internet makes it look like nobody's learning it and everyone's just doing it, you know. And the other thing about the internet is, and this might come as a shock to some people lie. People make shit up all the time about gigs they're doing, about sessions they're doing. People are purposefully vague. Great session today. Ask them, what was it for? When can I hear it? Was that a practice session? Because you can put session on the end of anything. And because in my mind, if you've heard a picture of your drums and say, great session, I immediately think that you're in Abbey Road making the next record for Clapton or Adele or something, and that I haven't been asked to do it. So now I'm upset and envious and everything else. The reality is probably quite far from that, you know. And big time drummers whose names we know don't always tell the truth, or will make posts look as if something is happening today when actually it's something that happened years ago. Because you can be purposefully obtuse, can't you? I can say great session at such and such studio and post a picture, and it isn't a lie. I did a great session at that studio, but it looks like I'm saying I'm there now, today, doing that. And actually I might be at home doing nothing, because there are, you know, it's important for all drummers and musicians to know that there's periods of time in your career where you don't do anything. I mean, obviously we're all doing fuck all at the moment, but yeah, you know, I've had big periods where I didn't do it. No one wanted me to go on the road, or no one wanted me to be on their TV show or whatever. Like, it's not a 365 days a year gig with 2 weeks off paid annual leave. You know, there's really lean times and really difficult times, and you need to have a strength of character to get through those times, to keep believing that you're a good drummer, you're a good musician, and that you can play, you know. So I guess my advice is to be real, to work really hard. You know, you need to be a bit lucky, and to have a good laugh and have a good time and enjoy it, you know, and just love music. And then you'll at least be in a good place, you know. Yeah,
I love that. That's a really nice answer. And what you said about, for example, you know, playing the O2, I think a lot of people, and actually a lot of people's parents, think that's it. Oh, you've made it. You've played the O2. It's like, yeah, that's one gig, but I know people that literally are doing the O2 on Monday, and then on Tuesday they're playing at the Dog and Duck in Balham.
Yeah, you know, like, me. Yeah. And the Dog and Duck's probably a more fun gig. Like, yeah, it depends. It's, you know, all of the gigs have merit, don't they? And to have not played one venue doesn't mean that you're not as good as someone who has. Like, some terrible drummers, no doubt, will have played at the O2. Some terrible drummers would have played at the Dog and Duck too. Like, who cares? Like, I mean, we all care, but we shouldn't care so much. We should just focus on us and on our things. And I say this from a place where I am as guilty as anybody else, because the internet gets me down sometimes. And then I have to go, you've done all right, Bob, and you're doing all right, and it's going to come back, and we're going to do it again. It's not, you know, you want to play the drums forever. You don't just want to do the drums once at one venue and then be like, you know, stacking shelves in 10 years going, I played at the O2 once. Shut up, Darren, and pass me the Maltesers. Or, do you know what I mean? Like, we want to do this forever. So let's, you know, be positive, groove hard, be committed, and have a great time. So, Bob, thank you so much for spending your time with us here at DrumWise today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Pleasure. Thanks for having me, man. I love what you've got going on down there. I love education, so I think it's brilliant.